So today we're going to be talking about a news article in the Chicago Sky newspaper, which this journalist got absolutely crucified, a Chicago Sky journalist, when obviously we know journalists have no say over the titles and what pictures are used in their articles. That is the editor. But also, it just shows again, I fully feel when we're talking about women's sports is that it no longer becomes a sports conversation ever. And this is what I'm like, I'm fully on the side of this is sports. This is only sports. When you start treating players like people in this sport differently than you would treat other sport, that is when the argument of this is not a respected sport. I think the WNBA is a respected sport. So I think players are going to get the same criticism as other sports. I'm going to talk about it in the exact same way as I would talk about the NBA. Because at the end of the day, this is not some pity league. This is not some like pity league where these players are just getting handouts. This is a sports league. We're going to talk about it like it's sports. And if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are only, what are we? We're only 6 subscribers off 30K, which is a ridiculous number. But this is the title. So everyone going mad. It said foul ball. Sky sent Clark to the floor again. This time's the Shield, but Fever shows who's boss. This is obviously a Chicago newspaper. Is it the title to use? Not really. But at the end of the day, look, we're in a clickbait world. That's just the unfortunate truth of it. We are in a clickbait world. Annie should know firsthand the hate that comes to these players. She has no say. F you guys, this is terrible. If you want to go at the newspaper, fair enough. They're going to attack her. And this is the best part about this, is that this is when I talk about double and triple standards, is like, again, when people go at certain players, when troll accounts on behalf of some players go at some players, it's fine. And then it changes different. And this is where I have a huge issue, is the inconsistency with this. Like, she just covers the team. And by the way, she had to basically tweet an apology. The idea that I saw the harassment she was receiving was false, and then made a calculated headline. Objective journalism, specifically in women's sports, is paramount. I'm not a fan of any team I cover. I'm perfectly comfortable with people disliking my takes. And then she was like, I don't choose the headlines. And people were like, you need to apologize on behalf of on behalf of your newspaper and all this crap. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. It's not on her. And this is where, when we talk about shifting accountability in WNBA media, it's not on the people whose not decisions it is. Like, if this is just an objectively bad thing. If you want to talk about, and they're saying it's a Chicago paper. Dude, I'm a Leeds fan. There is nobody that is harsher on Leeds than Leeds fans. There are nobody that's harsher on the Dublin football team than Dublin-based local newspapers. The idea that local newspapers aren't the harshest critics of their local teams is false. And it's ground in people that don't understand sports acting like they understand sports. Or not even acting like they understand sports, acting like they understand the history of sports media. And maybe you can make the argument that the way the sports media is toxic, which I agree. I fully agree with that. Maybe you can make the argument that it shouldn't be like this. You can make that argument too. You know what? Maybe you're right. But to make the argument that it is disingenuous and it is targeted when it is just sports reporting, it was reported the exact same way. Again, as an Irishman, I'm an Irishman. When we lost in 2010 in the World Cup, Thierry Henry's handball, that was all that people talked about. Not anything else. Nothing. Just the handball. When I'm just trying to think of other crazy games where it's just stuff happened. Obviously, this shouldn't have been. This was a flagrant one. It is what it is. Make the call. There was enough to write about in Caitlin Clark cooking this awful Chicago Sky team. But people are calling her out for being too harsh on the Chicago Sky. They suck and are borderline an embarrassment to basketball right now. They are, like, it is an embarrassment watching this team. They barely play defense. We saw the stat padding crap. They just looked like they went out to, I'm not going to go and say they went to hurt Caitlin Clark. They were down 30, so decided to rough up Caitlin Clark. She got zaza'd out of a timeout. And look, I'm not going to say Anya Were it was intentional. I hope it wasn't. I really hope it wasn't. And the only person who knows her, I don't think it was. I really hope it wasn't. But it's not a great look when she hits a 3, dances to celebrate, and gets zaza'd out of a timeout. It's not a good look. The Chicago Sky right now. And I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if it's from the top. I don't really know. All I can judge is what is currently on the floor right now. It's embarrassing to watch. It's absolutely embarrassing to watch. And again, let's not forget 2 games ago, you smacked Marina Mabrey in the head. Obviously intentional. This is a team that is allowed play. This is a team that played on the line. I will always say this. This was a team that fought their hardest. They played on the edge. But now that they're losing, they're going down. They've gone so far past the line. Like, this is like, the Bad Boy Pistons are revered as this great team because they won. If the Bad Boy Pistons were the worst team in the NBA and were doing what they did, they would be seen as one of the biggest disgraces to the sport of basketball. And that is borderline what we're seeing from the Chicago Sky. We're seeing, imagine if the Bad Boy Pistons sucked. That is what we're seeing right now. And I'm not going to talk about any players individually. I don't know what these individual players' intentions are. Again, Diamond DeShields is someone who came back from freaking nearly not being able to walk, nearly being paralyzed to play. To say that when she's focused, sorry about my camera, I don't know what's going on. I really don't know what's going on here. To say that when Angel Reese is focused, that she's not brilliant is wrong. Cardoso's a great rookie. But we're seeing the one player on the team that wants to win, Marina Mabrey, demanded a trade. They have one, other than Diamond DeShields, they have one other champion, Dana Evans. I think Diamond DeShields on the 2021 team. They got one other champion. She demanded a trade. There's something going on here. And it's not on the journalists for criticizing this. A journalist talking about the Chicago Sky team in anything but a negative light after yesterday. They didn't play hard. They didn't look like they tried. They looked like they were going out to hurt her, Caitlin. I'm not saying they were. It looked like it. Sure as hell looked like it. And then the snippet to Angel Reese being like, she just gets a good whistle. Like, again, look, she didn't say it publicly. It wasn't meant to be said. The fact that Mike picked it up makes it look worse than it is. We definitely, like, teams say that stuff every game to each other, so it's not the end of the world. The optics are just really, really bad. And, like, if you want to look at some of the replies to this tweet, her basically saying, like, I didn't choose this. I write the articles. The tone of your article is consistent with the headlines and photos. Man, if you have a tone that is anything but objectively negative towards the Chicago Sky yesterday, you're not reporting on sports. You're just not. You cannot watch what the Chicago Sky did yesterday and think that it was anything other than awful. Like, the worst game they've played all year. And not only that, I called it before the game. You can watch my previews. The Chicago Sky go down and they go out swinging. And I don't mean go out swinging by shooting their way. I mean go out swinging. I literally called it before the game. I said, while this is a close game, this is going to be a fair game. And if Indiana pull away, then we start to see the flagrants. And look, again, maybe it's all coincidence. But the fact that that was a thing that people thought was going to happen and it did, just not a good look on Chicago. And reporting this in any way other than this game is not a bad look. Who selected the headline as inciting bullying and harassment? I'm sorry if you, in front of 1 million people, shove someone in the back, a sports article posting that you shoved something on the back, it shouldn't have been the headline, is not inciting bullying and harassment. I'm sorry. It's just not. It is sports. What you do is going to be reported in sports. The problem is social media. Just everybody get off it. And that's the issue now. Is the WNBA is now a sport that is respected enough that it is getting these big headlines. And the unfortunate truth is that there's some huge negatives when it comes to the fame and the sport growing. And this is the negative. This is not on Caitlin Clark. This is not on the person for the article. You can blame the newspaper for probably picking a bad headline, but you can't talk about the game yesterday without talking about the fact that this was after 3 fouls in 30 seconds where Diamond DeShields went nowhere near the ball. She went nowhere near the ball in any of the 3 in 30 seconds, culminating in one was a stop the fast break check, body check. Not dangerous at all. It's a foul. Not going for the ball. It's an intentional foul, but it's nothing. It's a common foul. And then there was the shove off the ball when the ball was being inbounded. Like an overly hard bump and shove. And then a shove in the back in 30 seconds. In one possession. Like, basically, over the course of one possession, we saw 3 of them. So, like, the fact is, you cannot report on this game without talking about how that game ended. You cannot report on this game without talking about the stat pad double-double. You actually can't. And if you are talking about this game in any other way, then you are not then you're being unfair to the sport. You're being unfair to the sport. Like, the biggest headlines in this game were not the sport. The biggest headlines in this game were not that Caitlin Clark hooped, that Nalissa Smith balled out, that Temi Fagbenlai played great defense, that Lindsay Allen was hooping for Chicago, that Michaela Onyenwere was hooping for Chicago. No, they went out swinging, and there's a reason why the biggest headlines are them going out swinging, because they couldn't just lose with any, like, they had to be the sorest losers I've seen. You know what? We're down 30. Let's just, and at least, even if it's not trying to hurt her, let's just cause chaos. We're down 30. Let's cause chaos. Chaos is what they wanted to cause during the game, and chaos is what they caused. You can't do what they did and then play victim. It just doesn't work like that. If it was in men's sports, this would not only be a news article. If a team did this in men's sports, went down 30, and just started going at, like, imagine if hypothetically in 2015 Warriors, the tanking Sixers went down 30, and then suddenly they just started trying to shove Steph Curry on the ground. That would be news. Of course it would. Of course it would. Especially when it's the equivalent of a playoff game. Of course it would. We can't forget, Joel Embiid dropped 53 points in a playoff game. The only thing people talked about were him grabbing Mitchell Robinson's leg, kicking someone in the nuts. That's all we talked about. Just as women's sport doesn't mean it's not sport anymore. And this is what some of these people don't understand. If you want to give the respect, if people want the sport to get the respect in the media, then these players are going to be treated like star sports players and not like they don't matter. And unfortunately, Diamond DeShields, whose name should be known as one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. I have nothing against Diamond DeShields, but specifically yesterday, she messed up. And the unfortunate truth is, if you mess up in front of a million people, there's a million eyes that want to see it. And not only that, there's a million eyes that want to read it. There's a million listeners that want to hear about it the next day. And unfortunately, that's sports.